Happy Sunday, Facebook. I'm Fizer. Welcome to another segment of Identity Talks or Facebook Live with me. Um, we had an awesome conversation today with some of the strategists and students of Kairos today. Just living conversation on our life rhythms and things like that. Hey, how you doing, baby? And I just wanted to share some things. I know that I had an event planned, and it wasn't really an event per se. It was just a time of mature conversation. But the mature conversation works so wonderful and so effectively when our natural life rhythms are reflectives of what we're conversing about. We could talk about a lot of great things, but if our natural flow, not natural religious flow, but just natural life flow, when our human rhythms and patterns are direct reflectives of some of the brilliance that we speak of, that's when you experience an anointing of possibility. That's when you experience the open door of already done. And what do I mean by natural flow of life? Well, we could prepare for church and our rhythm will fit church, but we're speaking of the natural human decisions and the natural routines and going on. Because most times we're not traveling to the great places that we're talking about in our minds. We speak of great possibilities and hopes and purposes while we go to a job that we hate. Well, that means that the power of this hadn't worked yet. It's forming, but it's not at work yet. We talk about this great sensation in our spirit, and we talk about the great possibilities of God, while our natural rhythms are not reflectives of those imaginations that we speak of. And so what we're desiring to do is to establish a natural human rhythm that's an exact reflection of the beauty and the brilliance that we speak of in our spirit. Not just lifting your hands. Really, how many different human movements are there for spiritual things? You know, there's a lot of movements for playing basketball, going on dates, going out to dinner, going to work, going to the store. But how many spiritual movements are there that are reflectives of the things that we talk about in spirit? Outside of raising your hands, kneeling down, squatting, or praying. What are the movements? What are the human patterns and routines that are reflectives of the brilliance that's in our mind? So we just talked a lot about some things, and I'm just sharing some things. So we call this segment Purpose and Depths. And so what is it? What are the deep things of God? Is it revelations that are uncomfortable and we just like to hear about, or are we ready for our human reflections or our human movements to reflect the depths? Because if we're not ready to experience a shift in our human routine, then there are some depths and purposes of God that we won't invite to our lives. Because in order to invite and understand these things, we have to be willing to make an exchange between the revelation and our human pattern and routine. Which means if I'm going to learn this, I'm going to have to expect and accept the fact that my human movements are going to change. Not just praying and reading, but my relationship interactives. Maybe where I work, maybe where I live is going to change drastically. So we have to be ready to do the things that we're willing to learn. How many of you guys are willing to do the thing that you're willing to learn? Because if you're not willing to be embodied by the lesson, then the lesson won't be downloaded to your spirit. You have to be ready to become the natural tabernacle of what you want to receive. As you receive great truth, your natural momentum and life will reflect the great truth, and you will be a living organism of the great truth that you're thinking of. A lot of times we want to be partakers of truth without exchanging human action with it, which means if this is going to be downloaded in me, a new attitude and behavior will be uploaded. It means my movements will shift as a result. My patterns will shift, and my routines will shift as a result of this. So one of the first things we said is there is nothing outside of you that's stronger than you. So if you have something to write with, I want you to write this down. Or say it with me. There is nothing outside of me that's stronger than me. There is nothing outside of me that's stronger than me. So in other words, to believe what I'm saying will mean you will have to give up processing convenience. Most times we hear great truth, but we process it through convenience between learning and living from it. We don't really activate the principle. We hear it and we just hear it, but we don't cut on the activation of life from it. So if you know that there is nothing outside of you that's stronger than you, it means that the life that you are wanting to live, you will simply start living it now. Without asking any permission, without asking for help, in an instant, you can be free of bondage. Right in an instant, when you're ready to live without question, because when you know this is what you naturally want, you will not ask anybody. We only ask to do something when the brilliance we're seeking to do is out of our skill level or natural zone level. But when you know that this life is in your zone and it's what you want, you can begin now free. How many of you right now believe you can begin right now free? You can heal yourself of all hindrances just by accepting the fact and saying, I'm doing it. Just by committing, I'm doing it. But so many times we create a process of convenience. We like to play around with the revelation while waiting to see if we're ready to commit wholeheartedly to the truth of it. And I think that's the issue. Most times we're not ready to commit to the fulfillment of what the truth is. And so we create a process or a barrier of breaking down the principle in little bitty pieces until we accept it in little bitty pieces. But you can eat the whole chunk right now. How many of you believe what I'm saying? When you are ready to commit your life to a thing, you can do the thing now. That's the depths of purpose. I'm ready. How many of you can truly say right now, I am ready for everything? I am ready for everything. I am ready for everything. Because we're always ready for a blessing and a new car and a new house and a new relationship. But how many of you are ready for a new you? Not the new gym you, not the new you that you gain at the gym, but the new mind. How many of you are ready for the new mind right now? You can have it right now without saying you're human. You can have it now. You can have it. You can do it right now. You can do it. That was the difference between the Christ mind and a regular mind. The Christ mind is doing it. Because if this is what I want, I'm doing it. I will not burden myself by asking myself if I can. I will not burden myself by asking myself if I can. I will not burden myself by asking myself permission to do what I already want. What do you already want to live? Not just do. What do you already want to live? What is the life you already want to live? You can live it without comparing yourself to the money or the financial part of it. You can do it right now. Speak that. I can. Yeah. What do you want to do? And what do you want to live? We also begin to say we are the Lord in the earth. I am who God is in this earth. When dogs have puppies, when dogs have children, they call them puppies. When kittens have children, they call them kittens. When God has children, they call them what? What do you call the children of God? When God has children, what do we call them? Write it, let me know. When God has children, you call them what? So we begin to break the illegal feeling of identity out of our minds. Religion, especially religious Christianity, I'm not talking about the actual following of Christ, but I'm talking about that's right, the label in which we identify ourselves as followers, the Christian religion, not the act of following Christ or being followers of Jesus, but I'm talking about the symbolistical religious terminology that we name ourselves. It causes us to be afraid to be gods. God's children are gods. God's children are gods. Not Christians, not sinners saved by grace, but the children of God are gods. The children of God are sons of God. And if we're sons of God, we are actual partakers of a nature that produced us. We are reflectives of a nature that produced us. We're not Jehovah, but we are the nature of Jehovah. We are children of Jehovah, which means we are the actual nature that Jehovah is. God isn't a name, it's a nature. God isn't a name, it's a nature. God isn't a name, it's a nature. So therefore, we are partakers of the divine nature, which means God's children are gods. But there is this illegal emotional boundary in it that makes us afraid to call our names out loud. We'll let Erykah Badu say it. We'll let Erykah Badu sing it, and we'll say, listen to that. But there is this illegal thing in our consciousness that makes us afraid to say it and declare it out loud. I am a God like God. I'm God in nature. I'm not Jehovah, but I'm the nature of Jehovah. And there is this illegal feeling that won't allow our consciousness to become settled with it. And when we don't allow our life and consciousness to become settled with the truth, it will leave room for poverty and sickness and distractives and everything that should not be to be. When we don't accept with a pure consciousness that what we speak is legal, it will allow illegal things to set up legal apartments within our lives. When I'm afraid of the legal truth, it will allow illegal truths to reside in me. Am I making sense? When I'm afraid to not just say it, but when I'm afraid to allow it, I'm already that, but I'm afraid to allow the frequency of this legal truth to be. It will cause an illegal thing called fear and doubt and worry and debt to reside within us. It will allow debt in its many forms to reside within us. So your consciousness must know that it's resting in a legal verbiage. It's resting in a legal yes. It's resting in a legal amen. It's resting in a legal truth that we are the offspring of God. And when we know we are the offspring of God, we begin to feel like God in skin. We begin to have the feelings of God in ourselves. We begin to have a legal feeling of God. We feel how God is feeling now. How many of you are feeling how God is feeling now? And when we begin to live how God is feeling now, then the testimonies of going through will eradicate. It's like every week we're saying, when you're going through, 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 when you're going through. And we're steadily trying to gain permission in our mind to think and feel brilliant. We're constantly encouraging one another to step up faith. It's like step up and believe that God's going to do it. But we have to step up our inner esteem of who we are.